ثم أما بعد عباد الله, proceed O servants of Allah. The talk today will be about Fiqh al-Awlawiyyat. And honestly speaking, I did not choose the topic. I left it up to the organizers to choose the topic. And I came to know about the topic last night, so I said to myself, it is a good topic. We have to understand that in our deen, there are priorities. Fiqh al-Awlawiyyat is the fiqh of priorities. And in our deen, there are priorities. We can't deny this. It is important to begin with to say that in our deen there is nothing unimportant. No part of our deen is unimportant, insignificant. All of our deen is important, is significant. We value our deen, we cherish our deen. So nothing in our deen is insignificant. But awlawiyyat does not have only to do with the deen. Life also, there are priorities in life, and there are also priorities in the deen, even though there is nothing that is insignificant or unimportant. And the best indication on this is that we have 5 or 7 legal values for actions. We have 5 or 7 legal values for human action. And so it's 5 according to the majority, it's 7 according to the Hanafis. And the difference is not the difference in substance, it's just difference in categorization, like formalities. So whether you make a distinction between fard and wajib, or you make a distinction between haram and makruh tahrim, is the reason why it's either 7 or 5. But if you go by the 5 to begin with, we have wajib and we have mustahab, we have the obligatory, we have the recommended, we have the permissible, the mubah, we have the disliked, the makruh, and we have the prohibited or forbidden, which is the haram. In the Hanafi classification, the wajib is divided into fard and wajib. And there's no need basically to go into the details of why there's a division and the basis of the division. But the point that I'm trying to underscore here is that that is an acknowledgement that there are things that are more important than others. There are things that are more required than others. On both sides. On the side of demand of action, demand of inaction. Because wajib and mustahab is what? A demand of action. Makruh and haram is what? A demand of inaction. And permissible is neutral. Allah gave it up to you to do or not to do, to act or not to act. But on both sides, the demand of action and demand of inaction, the values are different. But there is a difference between wajib and there is a and we have Bunya Islam when it comes to Islam is founded on 5 things. We have the pillars of Islam. So even within the wajib, there are layers of wujub, and we have the fard al-kifaya and fard al-ayn, and they don't have the same priority, collective obligation and individual obligation. They don't have the same priority, and so on. Even within the mustahab and within the makruh, we have layers. They even divided the mustahab into layers, and the madahib, like Malikis, for instance, will distinguish between the sunnah and the mustahab within the layers of makruh, like a layer called khilaf al-Awla, which basically means sub-optimal. Khilaf al-Awla, sub-optimal. So the many shades, and all of this does what? It tells us that there are priorities. There are different legal values for action and inaction, and they are not the same. So we cannot equate between the salah, the wujub of salah, and many other acts that may be obligatory, not just recommended. So when it comes to our awlawiyyat, and certainly we're talking here we're here in London, so we're talking to a Muslim minority in a non-Muslim country, particularly in a Western country. I said to myself, there are so many ways, there are so many frameworks to basically base the khutbah on, or to organize the khutbah around, many frameworks that we can use to organize the khutbah around them. But the one that I chose to organize this khutbah around is the framework of Maqasid al-Shari'ah, or the objectives of Sharia, because it gives you a very handy and established framework to organize your khutbah around. what are the Maqasid al-Shari'ah? What are the objectives of Sharia, objectives of Islamic law that we have to internalize as we basically arrange our priorities as a Muslim community? So, Maqasid al-Shari'ah will be Hifz ad-Deen, Hifz an-Nafs, Hifz al-Aql, Hifz al-Nasl, Hifz al-Ird, Hifz al-Mal. So, Hifz is preservation. So, preservation of the Deen, we don't need to translate Deen. Preservation of life, preservation of intellect, preservation of Nasl, which is progeny you could use for this family, preservation of Ird, which is honor, you could use dignity, and preservation of mal, property, which is mal, financial resources. One thing that I want to basically highlight is that we should not understand these things to just mean preservation. So we should not understand preservation to mean that you're trying to avoid death. When we talk about Hifz an-Nafs, that you're trying to avoid death. We should understand that this within the context of preservation and promotion, promotion of the deen, promotion of life, just avoidance of death, promotion of life, promotion of the intellect, intellectual growth, intellectual development, promotion of, family, promotion of property, resources, financial resources, and so on. So it is very vital to understand the Maqasid al-Shari'ah from this angle or this viewpoint. It's not just preservation. Yes, our scholars have used the word Hifz, but that would not just mean to preserve, but to promote as well. So preservation and promotion. So what is the first one? The first one is Hifz ad-Deen. Hifz ad-Deen comes first, and it is even before Hifz an-Nafs. Our deen itself is a deen that recognizes the value of life. So our deen allows us to eat pork and to drink wine if we are starving and we're about to die. So our deen has a qaida that says ad-darurat tubih al-mahdurat, necessities permit prohibitions, because our deen is al-Hanifiyya as-Samha. Our God is merciful, our God is compassionate, our deen is built on masalih al-ibad, al-ma'ash wal-ma'ad wal-ajli wal-ajil, fi dunya wal-akhirah. والشريعة كلها رحمة وكلها عدل وكلها مصلحة وكلها حكمة. So our deen is about the benefit and the interest and the well-being of the people in this life and the one to come. In short term and long term, the Sharia is all about interests, all about the well-being of people. It's all about justice. It's all about mercy, and it is all about wisdom. And anything that departs from this is not part of the Sharia, even if it was introduced into it by misinterpretation or by wrong interpretation. So, given that our deen is about this, our deen itself, our deen that is based on leniency and that is based on the well-being of the ibad, allowed us to eat, to eat maita if we're about to die, allowed us to drink a sip of wine if we are choking or if we are, thirsty, about to die of thirst. Although that itself is controversial between the madhab, but that's a different story. So our deen gave us those, exceptions and gave us those concessions. But that does not mean that the deen comes next to an-Nafs. No, the deen comes actually before an-Nafs. Because if the deen itself, that easy deen, that in Hanifiyya Samha itself is at risk, then Sharia jihad for this. Jihad was legislated to protect the deen and to preserve the deen, even though it certainly, the price, the cost of this is the loss of nufus. So Hifz ad-Deen comes first. Our priority, and this puts like an extra burden on Muslim minorities, because whenever you are a minority, and keep in mind, when we're talking about Muslim minorities, we have to understand that 35% of the Muslims are minorities. 35% of the Ummah live as minorities. So we have to come to terms with this, and we have to figure out how to reconcile between our allegiance to the Ummah our الولاء الديني and الانتماء الوطني and our belonging to our respective countries. If we have 35%, 35 to 40%, there are 200 million plus. I mean, certainly if you ask like some of the Indian brothers, they will say 250, 300 million, but there are more than 200 million Muslims in India. So that is the third largest Muslim concentration in the whole world after Indonesia and Pakistan. And sometimes people can argue that it is second largest. So the phenomenon of being Muslim and a minority is not vanishing, it's not going away, and we have to come to terms with this, and we have to figure out how Muslim minorities can survive and can preserve their being within the context of being a minority, within that context of being a minority. So when it comes to Hifz ad-Deen, as we said, it is not just about preservation, it's also about promotion. So our function here, like our priorities, our obligation here is to provide, as a community, certainly the individual obligation of each and every one of us. We will believe, protect yourselves and your families from a fire whose fuel is people and stones. So that is the individual obligation. So everybody has to pay attention to that individual obligation. He's obliged to protect his own being, obliged to protect the being of his family, the being of his progeny. It's actually one of the prerequisites, one of the conditions of permissibility of living as a Muslim minority is to be able to preserve your being, to manifest your being, to live according to your being, and to make sure that you transmit your being uncorrupted to your progeny. That is not to enforce your laws on the larger community. That's not part of that obligation. The Muslim يعبد ربه حيث شاء. Aisha said, the believer worships his Lord wherever he wants. That is in terms of your ibadah. That's not in terms of you going to Abyssinia, for instance, and forcing your Sharia on the Abyssinians. The Sahaba did not do this. Najashi himself, he was Muslim, and he did not force his deen. Najashi was the king of Abyssinia. He did not force his deen on the Abyssinians, even though he was the king of Abyssinia. And this is something that we have to reflect on. This takes a lot of thought, to figure out how this did actually happen. Najashi was Muslim, right? The Prophet prayed janazah for Najashi. He was the king of Abyssinia, and he did not force his deen on the populace or the population there because they were Christian, and we wouldn't allow him to force the Sharia on them. But we have this individual obligation to protect ourselves and our families, and as a community, we have a communal obligation, a collective obligation to provide and to create institutions that would protect the deen and would serve two functions. Muslim community should serve two functions. One, to be a refuge for your people. Two, to be a lighthouse for others. So a refuge and a lighthouse. And I'm actually borrowing this idea from like a British thinker who said, to be a witness, a refuge and a witness. But I changed it a little bit. So a refuge for your people and a lighthouse. Your refuge has a light on top of that is inviting. Or your refuge is itself illuminated. The whole house is full of lights, and people are seeing the lights from outside. There are glass doors and glass windows, and the people are able to see the beauty from outside, get attracted to it, and come into that refuge. And when they come into that refuge, our responsibility would be what? وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بَعْدُ وَهَاجَرُوا وَجَاهَدُوا مَعَكُمْ فَأُولَٰئِكَ مِنكُمْ. Those who have believed afterwards, and they were late. So they didn't join you early, they didn't immigrate early, they didn't make jihad early, they didn't come into the faith early, they were late in coming to the faith. But they are right. Now we're here. وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِن بَعْدُ. Those who believed afterwards, وَهَاجَرُوا وَجَاهَدُوا مَعَكُمْ, and then they joined you in hijrah and jihad, فَأُولَٰئِكَ مِنكُمْ. They are of you. They are yourselves. They are you. So a community, in order for a community to survive, the community has to be cohesive. In order for this refuge to work, the community has to be cohesive. The danger of a cohesive community is what? A cohesive community is hard to penetrate. And the obligation is to do what? Is to reconcile between the two, is to have this perfect balance where you are a cohesive community that is open to newcomers. A cohesive community that is open to newcomers, welcoming to newcomers, and that can easily absorb newcomers. Absorb them not basically to vanquish their own identity, their own sort of habits that are neutral. Neutral in the sense that they are not offensive to Islam, because different peoples have different habits, different cultures, different backgrounds. Some would be offensive to Islam, whether they are Egyptian, Pakistani, American, Colombian, Venezuelan, whatever. Some of the culture may be offensive to the Islamic values. Some of the culture may not be offensive to Islamic values. What Islam does is, it says custom is authoritative. Custom is authoritative in the sense that we will accept any custom that is not offensive to the values of Islam. And we will not force people to be, to mold them all into the, or shape them into like a rigid mold that we make and we force our culture on them. As long as the culture and the custom is not offensive to Islam, it should be fine. But we should be able to accommodate newcomers. That should be part of, part of our role, because the idea of preserving capital does not at all conflict with the idea of making profit. So that cohesive community that's trying to preserve capital, that's trying to protect the Deen of its members and the Deen of its progeny, should be also looking into promotion, looking into making gains. And those gains, when we're trying to make gains, keep in mind, this is not basically to nourish our ego, and that's just a problem, because as long as we take it in that sense, that we're trying to make gains because we're trying to get better or bigger and stronger and more numbers. It's like an egotistic outlook at it. No, we're trying to make gains because we have goodwill for humanity. We have goodwill for humanity. We want to share that beauty with the rest of humanity. We are interested in their well-being. We're interested in sharing the goodness that we have and the beauty that we have with the rest of humanity. And that's why we're keen on making dawah, not basically to promote our group, but rather to share the goodness with the rest of humanity. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. Alhamdulillah, and I'm looking at the clock because certainly to cover the 6 objectives would be too much, but to go over them quickly in maybe 1 or 2 minutes. The rest of the objectives, because they are important. The second objective is the preservation of life. And life, that's the preservation of law and order, because you can't preserve life without preservation of law and order. And when it comes to law and order, the law of the local laws, the law of the land, is respected also, because most of the time it does not conflict with Sharia, and if there is room, the law of the land provides for us to live by the Sharia and to let the Sharia adjudicate between us and our affairs, whether it's family affairs or even business affairs among ourselves, then we should maximize that. We should use that rule that the local laws allow us, because that's part of our commitment to our Deen. Part of our commitment to our Deen is to live according to the Sharia. And if the local laws allow us, give us certain room, certain space where we can adjudicate our own disputes according to our own Deen, then we should make use of that. But we should respect the laws, the law and order. We should promote basically the stability of the society, because like everybody else, We are interested in law and order. We are interested in safety. We are interested in the preservation of life. It is part of our Deen. Preservation of life is part of our Deen. But preservation is not only about avoidance of death. It's also about promotion of well-being. And Muslim communities, for instance, like the healthcare, for instance, you have social healthcare here, or socialist healthcare in the UK. So that's not a big concern for you. I come from America, we don't have that. But so if the state is taking care of that, the Muslim community needs to take care of mental health. Mental health is a big issue. And, mental health does not, the fact that the notion that if you're pious and you're spiritually well, that you must be emotionally and mentally well is incorrect. There are pious people out there that have depression and anxiety and OCD and all kinds of things. And we need to provide resources as Muslims, because it is not as easy for non-Muslim psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, therapists to take care of Muslim mental health. It's not as easy. It's a little bit more complicated and nuanced than this. So we need to provide resources as a community for our members to promote that aspect of well-being, that aspect of preservation and promotion of life, because mental health is part and parcel of your general well-being. And then intellect, and that is growth in every regard, growth in your religious understanding in all sciences. You should be encouraged. If Muslim kids get the proper foundation from us, they can be exposed. They can go to Oxford, they can go to Cambridge, and we should be promoting their growth in every regard. If they have a strong foundation, a strong Islamic foundation, the worldview, the Islamic, the beautiful and coherent and solid Islamic worldview, if you instill it in their hearts and their minds and saturate your minds with that worldview, they will be able to basically navigate their way through any system of education. And then we have the promotion of an-Nasl and al-Ird, which you could say Nasl progeny is family values, and we should be all for promoting family values, because that is the building block of humanity. That's the spine of society. And if that is destroyed, the society is destroyed. And when the society is destroyed, everybody suffers. And then promotion of dignity, honor, the dignity is one of the can go to Cambridge, and we should be promoting their growth in every regard. If they have a strong foundation, a strong Islamic foundation, the worldview, the Islamic, the beautiful and coherent and solid Islamic worldview, if you instill it in their hearts and their minds and saturate your minds with that worldview, they will be able to basically navigate their way through any system of education. And then we have the promotion of an-Nasl and al-Ird, which you could say Nasl progeny is family values, and we should be all for promoting family values, because that is the building block of humanity. That's the spine of society. And if that is destroyed, the society is destroyed. And when the society is destroyed, everybody suffers. And then promotion of dignity, honor, the dignity is one of the al-Awlawiyyat also. This was added by Imam Jazari, and everybody picked up afterwards. The human rights, the concept of human equality, that's part of human dignity, and we should be promoting that as well. And then finally,
do not give the weak-minded your money, your property that Allah had made as a means of sustenance for you. Without strong al-Aql, strong endowments, without strong financial resources, you're not going to be able to build strong institutions. You're not going to be able to preserve 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So preservation and promotion of resources, financial resources, should be also a priority. Every one of you has different talents. Some of you can work on preservation of deeds. Some of you can work on preservation of life and well-being. And some of you can work on preservation of financial resources, preservation and promotion of financial resources. But have that mentality of, I have to do something, I have to contribute, I have to be part of it. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us, protect our progeny, and protect our communities, and bring peace and justice to the whole world. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه، وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم لا تسلط علينا بذنوبنا من لا يخافك ولا يرحمنا. اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا. اللهم اعف عنا يا كريم. ربنا آتنا في حسنى تقواها وزكيها أنت خير من زكاها، أنت وليها ومولاها. أقم الصلاة إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون.
The brothers who asked if they can make way to the wall, inshallah, there's some space in the wall. So just go through the crowd and just go to the wall, please.